Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
We are learning Mishna Bava Kamma, Parak Gimel, Chapter 3, Mishnah Mishnah 6. Okay. Shnaim shayu mahalchim b'shus harabim. Two people were walking in a public area. Echad ratz ve'echad mahalach. One is running and one is walking. And what happened? Aishayu shneim ratzim, but they were both running. V'ziku zeh hazeh, and they ended up damaging each other. They collided. And they damaged each other. Shneyam Peturin, both of them are exempt. Okay, that's the words. You have two people walking in a public domain, one running, one walking, are both running, and they damage each other, they are both exempt. So what's going on here exactly? So the point is like this. You have the two people, they're walking in the public domain. The first case, one is running, one is walking. Now, the thing is like this. As we're going to see, or as we actually had already before, running in the public domain is not necessarily what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be walking. So now, when you run, you are doing things unusual. You're not doing the regular way of doing things. And that makes you more responsible. Now, in this case, though, we say that when one is running, one is walking, and they collide, that they're both exempt. That means the guy who was running, why isn't it now, again, they're colliding. It's the force of both of them coming into each other that causes the damage. We're saying here that even though one was running and one was walking, they're both exempt, which would have to mean that the guy who was running had permission to run. He was allowed to be running in the public domain, and therefore, when he collided with the other person, he wasn't negligent, he wasn't careless, he was doing what he was allowed to do, and therefore, when they both collide with each other and they both cause the damage to each other, they're going to be exempt. So what's the case? So the case like this, where one is running, one is walking, it was Erev Shabbos or Erev Yontif, when it's permitted to run in the public domain in order to prepare for Shabbos or Yontif. That's why Jews are always running on Friday. But actually, they bring down here in the notes from the Aruch HaShulchan that Erev Shabbos in this context refers to the period immediately before Shabbos, when people are in a rush to prepare for Shabbos. I don't know what immediately means, but it doesn't mean Friday morning. It doesn't even sound like early Friday afternoon, but I don't know. I can't say for sure. What? I don't know. It doesn't say. It just says it says immediately before. That's when there's such a pressure to finish getting ready for Shabbos. That's when you have permission to run under Rishus Harabim, and that's why you say they're both going to be exempt. Now, in this case, we say each injury was caused by the forces of both the damager and the victim. For example, they were running towards each other when they collided. Find a lot of times here in the notes to bring down from the Rishonim that the damage is caused by both. It seems like if damage is caused by one more than the other, that means someone was going, so to speak, faster or out of order more than the other one. So they're both doing the same thing. Both their actions cause the damage, but since both of them are permitted to do what they're permitted to do, then they're exempt. Okay, and in the case where they're both running, as they explain here, both are. It's a regular day. Both of them are running, and actually they're both not supposed to be doing what they did. They're both not supposed to be running. But since they're doing the same thing, one's not going to be more responsible than the other. So as they explain here, in the first case, the person running was allowed to do so. And in the second case, both were running, meaning they both weren't supposed to be doing it, but they did it. And therefore, no one of them is more responsible than the other for the damage of the other one. However, as they bring down here in the notes, if one person was running and the other was walking, and it was not Erev Shabbos, Erev Yontif, and the runner injured the walker, the runner would have to pay damages. Since people do not usually run in a public area on an ordinary day, the runner was acting in an unexpected way, which makes him liable. Okay, this is so even in our Mishna's case, where the injury was caused by the force of the victim as well. Nonetheless, being that the one who was running was not doing what is usual, he was acting in an unexpected way, therefore the other person didn't have to be aware of anything that could happen to him like that, and therefore the other person is going to be responsible. Okay, let's do the next Mishnah, Mishnah Zion, Mishnah 7. Hamavakeya b'reshus hayachid. Someone was chopping wood in a private property. and by doing so, the chips were flying through the air. The hizik reshus harabim, and it ended up damaging something or someone in a public place. Reshus harabim, he was chopping wood in a public domain. The hizik reshus hayachid, and the chips flew and damaged someone or something in a private domain. Reshus hayachid, hizik reshus hayachid acher. He's chopping in a private domain and it damages in a different domain, different private domain. In all these cases, we say chayiv. He is liable. Although, and they bring down here in the notes, although the damage was not done by the person's body, but by the chips of wood, he is liable to pay because he gave force to the wood as though he threw it. This is an application of the rule, koichai kegufai, his force is like his body. And therefore, it's like he threw them. So even though he's, let's say, again, the case of Rishus Harabim, you can only imagine, why is he chopping wood of Rishus Harabim? Yeah. That doesn't sound like he's supposed to be doing that. But when he's in the private domain where there's no one else seemingly around, there's no one that's going to be damaged locally, so in close vicinity. However, nonetheless, because it's considered like he's throwing these chips into the public domain or into someone else's private domain, that's considered his act, his direct act, and therefore he's liable for it, responsible for if they damage, if these wood chops, if these chips of wood are going to fly off and damage someone in a different area. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.